you think El Salvador is a good place to bring your entrepreneurial spirit and build these businesses?
Yeah, 1000% right now.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you could do it anywhere. You can make money in any country, even war-torn country, selling bullets and bombs. You know what I mean? Selling masks during. You can find opportunity, whether it's good, not so good. You know what I mean? There's ways to make money in any economy, any place. You know, we've seen that. But I love El Salvador because there's a couple reasons why. One, and now that I have a child, you know, our daughters, we went to Chuck E. Cheese, and how cool is it that I don't have to have a bodyguard anymore? Before I had to walk with bodyguards here. When our TikTok was really, really viral, and that's all I was focusing on. We had people follow us because I had to go to ATMs every single day, pull out $500. That's the only way I could get money is going to ATMs.
And this is after the gangs.
This is during the gangs.
It's
yeah.
during still.
Yeah, during the gangs, I had guns pointed at me, and all over the country. I've been in like shootouts in Brazil, like hiding behind like things where bullets are flying.
Good Lord.
It's pretty crazy, you know. Seen people like murdered, like 10 feet in front of me. A lot of the crazy shit was in Brazil, but now that I have a daughter, it's like I don't have to live this adrenaline rush life anymore. I want my daughter to have a dad. I want to be able to create a community for her if she chooses, you know, to be a part of. And El Salvador has that security. And the second thing is, this is kind of my analogy of it. I think everyone goes through a health crisis, right? Like God always allows us to go through a disease, whether it might be cancer or maybe severe pains or a blindness or whatever. I think that comes from us to really like analyze something that we're not healing in our life, you know, and that can be a heavy, heavy burden. You know, and maybe you guys remember the times where it doesn't have to be a sickness, where you're just up all night with this problem that seems endless and it can turn into hopelessness. You know, just think of that. Like maybe your mom was going through cancer or someone was dying, or like that hardest moment in your life where you just felt like shit. Maybe it was after a divorce or whatever. And then remember the moment where it was just kind of like healed, you know, where that was like weight was lifted off your shoulders. I think the entire country had a cancer, and that was everyone here has a cousin who was raped, who was murdered, and their story. I've interviewed thousands of people. Like the stories are insane about child molestation, like fucked up shit. You know what I mean? Like I've seen people with like no arms, they telling the story and they freeze up and they start shaking. Like grown men start crying, and I'm like, okay, you don't have to tell me about this. Just talking about like, oh, you didn't pay your renta. What is that? Hey, give me money for your little business. What is that called? Your extortion.
Your kickback.
You know, so now we're gonna rape your 3-year-old daughter in front of you, your 3-year-old daughter in front of you. Like that kind of dirty shit. You know what I mean?
Your 3-year-old daughter in front of you.
This is some crazy gang stories that I've heard. And so this is what I'm going with. Like now imagine everyone has healed at the same time. The cancer is gone. And a lot of people are like, I don't know what it is. It's like this energy, you know, it really
people
is.
Feel liberated over here.
That cancer is gone. And what a beautiful spirit to be around. Not just the security, but now it's like this energy of like, now let's move forward. Let's, you know.
Wow. That's a great way to describe it. It's an overlap too that I noticed. Like, with Bitcoin, they have a certain level of optimism and energy because they see the world now through a different lens, and they have hope, right? Like Michael Saylor famously says, like Bitcoin is hope. And so there's this spirit and this optimism there with them. And then you couple that with the spirit and optimism that the El Salvadoran people have now that they're liberated from this like oppressive, demonic, satanic force that was here. And yeah, there's an energy here like I've never felt before.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. I enjoy that, you know.
So another thing that I find pretty interesting here is the people, like coming across people like yourself. So the people that, you know, the policies here are attracting, right? Like Max Kaiser, you're here. Like there's all these interesting people here, and I feel like when you have that concentration of people that think outside the box and who will actually want to put action to their thoughts and to their words, like cool things can transpire. Like, have you noticed that?
Yeah. It's but I think you look in you look in your life, and anything like anytime you've like made a good amount of money, or you've created something really creative, or even like everyone has some type of form of a viral post, right? Where you just kind of like felt so inspired and you typed something on Facebook 5 years ago and you're like, wow, that was like my most shared, liked post. Like anytime you have something, there's always some type of like emotion that is inside of you, right? Something that pushes you to be able to create something that turns into what it is. And so there is definitely, you know what I mean? Like there is that creative energy here. And the more people that are around this, the only thing that I think people have to be careful is it always attracts a lot of sharks. It attracts a lot of wolves, you know? And that's kind of what we're seeing too in the real estate is just a lot of greed and a lot of lies, you know? Me working in a lot of real estate here, it's sad to see how many people, you know, it's kind of like what I've dealt with multiple times of I'm a pastor and then start talking like a pastor. Real damn pastors, you know, that a lot of people look up to. This is the price, and I promise I'm a man of God. I'm not here to make money. The rich man, it's harder for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of heaven than a camel through the needle of I don't know what, you know what I mean? Like that whole, like, how dare you not believe me? God called me to be a pastor. So if God calls me, then how dare you look at me like this? And then it's like, you know, I might know someone who owns a bank and they'll be like, oh yeah, the loan is this. I'm like, you fucking liar. You fucking liar, you piece of shit. You know, and is my moment now to learn humility and to learn like slap on the cheek, slap on the other one. But it's sad to see that it's kind of hard to believe, you know? So I think in these times, we need to learn discernment, patience. Don't go with the first deal. Really look into, if you're going to come here, really like search, really look and with good intention. Like, why do you want to do this? Why do you want to do that? Is it going to benefit the people? Is it going to benefit the people surrounding it? And for the most part, it's a lot of Salvadorans who've made money in California, other states are coming here now, young, hungry. They want to do something cool. They see all the money that's being made in real estate and in tourism. And just to remember that, you know, your cousins and your family, and there are people here that are making $75 biweekly. And if we want to create a society that flourishes, it's not about, I need to fucking work my way up so I'm the 0.01%. You know, and I don't care about anything else until I'm there, you know. How can we create a business? How can we create something where everyone can kind of eat? And I don't mean that in like this very socialistic communist sense, because I'm all about business, you know what I mean?
Capitalism.
I'm all about that, you know. But it just goes to you have to be like, for capitalism to work, how a lot of people envision it, the capitalist mindset has to have those morals, you know.
Yeah, it has to be constrained by some type of ethical standards, right? And so it's like attracting those people here with that vision, with those principles is a big deal.
That is interesting to think about if those ethical standards could be kind of ingrained into a country in the way it governs itself.
Well, it starts at the top with the leader, right? Bukele.
Yeah.
And so it's a big deal. Like it's a huge signal to
But
the
it's
rest.
not permanent.
It's not permanent, but it can set the tone for a culture. I mean, Bukele 10 years here, you know, that's a whole generation that grows up with him as an example of a leader and who to emulate and who to follow as far as like the standards for their ethical bounds, you know, besides God itself, right? Like, you know, having that hierarchy or having that perceived hierarchy, I don't even know what to call it, but like just having leadership in general be esteemed is a big deal.
Yeah, well, kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier, though. So you have the leadership to set examples, but they still could mess up. They still could flub up and something happens. So
Scandals, stuff like that.
yeah, so I'm just imagining those constraints we're talking about, the ethical morality stuff that's just kind of built in where it doesn't matter if the leader fucks up, for example, because that's still all going to be built into the capitalism happening in the country.